You can't just vanish.
28-year-old mother of three, Tuitania Barclay, disappeared from her Dunedin home in 2002.
Theoretically, we're told, has walked out on her 3 children. She's taken nothing with her that we're aware of.
For both police and friends, things just didn't add up.
She would not have walked off and left those kids. Not at all.
Everyone talked about her, about being a good mother. Her friends, her close associates, they could see how she cared for those children. This is not a woman who's just going to walk out on those children.
Something has happened to Tania. I don't believe she is alive.
I hope that she turns up one day, but it's been too long.
Police believe it's never too late to solve a cold case, even without a body.
Someone knows what's happened to her.
We have brought together a specialist team to review the disappearance of Tuitania Barclay in 2002. They will use their expertise and the most up-to-date technology to look at things with fresh eyes.
We try and build a case. We try and gather the evidence that will show that one of those suspects, is the person responsible for the death of Tuitania.
Tuitania was a mother. She's someone's daughter. She deserves to be found.
How can any boy live with that, thinking their mothers walked out on them, when we know she didn't? I want to prove to them what happened to their mother. Find out for them what happened to their mother.
Nearly 16 years on, the devoted mother is still missing and her children don't have any answers. What will it take to solve the mysterious disappearance of Tuitania Barclay? Tuitania, known by some as Tania and others Tans, but most commonly Tui, disappeared from her home she shared with partner Bill Brown and her 3 children around September 2002. Her body has never been found. The brunette, who was sometimes blonde, simply vanished.
Tuitania Barclay was a mother when this inquiry started. She had 3 children, by 2 young, one was a baby at 5.5 months and another 18 months, and she had an older child by a different partner.
Things had been going well, but recently Bill had left his job and financial pressures had begun to take a toll.
The landlord comes around to the property to see them, to find out why the rent hasn't been paid. This is our last known actual sighting of Tuitania. From then on, as far as we know, she has disappeared sometime in the preceding weeks or days. Her life has basically stopped in September 2002.
The youngest of 6 siblings, Tui was placed in foster care.
Tui had a tough upbringing. Her and her sister were adopted out as children at a very early age. Tui then, as she grew up, obviously got into trouble, went off the rails, be fair to say, in her early teens.
Social worker Hazel Scholes knew of Tui around this time.
As a teenager, she was challenging. Children become teenagers, and even children that you know the best sometimes become quite difficult to manage.
During those years, Tui worked as a stripper and prostitute and became involved in the drug scene.
Tui got into a relationship with another drug user, and they funded their drug use by her prostitution, really, at that stage. It was a volatile relationship, to say the least, through those times. Tui ended up getting herself into trouble with the police for theft and fraud matters and spent a time in prison. She'd had a child at that stage, her first child, and that child, because of the drugs and the situation she had got herself into, was taken off her. So Tui went to prison and realised that she had to change her way if she wanted to get her son back.
On release from prison, Tui returned to Dunedin to live. She made a firm commitment to prove she was a fit mother to DJ.
Tania was highly motivated and very willing to work alongside the social workers to have DJ returned to her care. I don't think that she ever put her foot wrong in terms of being motivated and working really hard. And that was extraordinary. She was an extraordinary woman. She was a good woman and a good mum.
In December 1998, Tui had her son back in what many have called a miraculous turnaround.
She gets work and also is on the domestic purpose benefit. She rents a house, a nice bungalow in Waikari, which she moves in. She buys furniture, she gets toys, she gets bedding for her first child, and she's starting to create a life for herself.
Almost a year later, Tui began a relationship with Bill Brown. Bill offered her something that previous partners never could.
Well, I think it was stability. He had a job, full-time job. I think he was caring, I think he was loving. Yeah, they went out for some time and obviously got on really well, and they decided to move in together. During that time, the next couple of years, they had 2 children. Bill continued to work, and Tuitania looked after the kids and also did work when she could do work as well. Tuitania kept a very tidy house. Everything was in place. It was a family home. There were toys. You know, at Christmas time, there were Christmas trees. There were presents under the tree. There was, you know, couches, there was furniture, there were things for the kids to play with. All the signs of a good house. There was a mother who was trying to do her best, you know, unlimited income.
But that happiness wasn't to last.
Bill stopped working, so the financial pressures went on more in the family with no money coming in.
She was really struggling with money, and so she asked us to take DJ for a little while. It was never going to be permanently, it was just for a while until she could sort things out. And then I get a phone call from her one day saying that she was going home to kick Bill out.
What am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do.
She did mention he was abusive. I don't think she was happy in the relationship.
Probably just going to have to leave.
And we told her we'd send her some money and a parcel with some things for the babies to help her through. And she said she'd bring us back the next day. And she never did.
Later, Bill Brown would tell police that despite still breastfeeding her youngest child, she'd walked out on him and the kids.
He believed that she'd gone back to her old ways of drug taking and prostitution, but basically hadn't been back to the house and there'd been minimal contact with her since September.
But that didn't sit well with friend Natalie, who became increasingly concerned.
We kept trying to ring, and then her phone just kept going to voicemail, and then one day the voicemail was changed to Bill's name. Bill's stories just kept changing, and he had mentioned that certain family members had seen her, and we spoke to them, and none of them had seen her at those times that he said they had seen her. We kept telling Bill to report her missing, and he was like, no, she's left me, she doesn't want to see the kids. Which I found very bizarre that she would not at least ring DJ, because DJ was her pride and joy. She loved that boy.
It wasn't until 5 months later that Bill finally reported Tui missing.
He said she packed a bag, a small bag, and left with that. But you know, when the house was looked at back in 2002, most, if not all, of her clothes were still in the wardrobe. Her jewellery was there, her leather jackets, which she loved, were there. It appeared to us very little had been taken. If she'd walked out of the house, had walked out with nothing, leaving her furniture, her phone, her car, everything behind. So at that stage, unfortunately, it was only treated as a missing person.
But now police have a far more analytical approach to missing person cases.
Today, you know, we'd be looking at all the signs, all the other things, and missing persons are treated quite differently. A lot more investigation goes into a missing person to make sure it is a missing person.
She would not have walked off and left those kids. Not at all. Tans loved her kids. It was just very weird.
Like, I've been in this job for some time now, and you don't want to leave cases unsolved, but the worst part is there are 3 children who've got a mother, who had a mother. And, you know, I'm a father with 3 children. I want to bring closure for them.
If this is not a missing person case, what happened to Tuitania? Has she been the victim of foul play? Where is her body? Can a new investigation provide the answers? In late 2002, Dunedin mother of 3, 28-year-old Tuitania Barclay went missing from her Wākari home.
Initially, it was treated as a missing person. The staff at the time thought they were being told this is a woman who's gone back to her old ways. And Tuitania was known to the police in the past as being involved with drugs, prostitution.
But after almost 16 years and no word from Tui or any clue as to her whereabouts, that story seems increasingly unlikely. We have brought together a group of specialist detectives to reassess key information and search for clues to solve this cold case. Leading our investigation will be Detective Senior Sergeant Malcolm Ingalls, one of the first officers to review the case.
So I got all the old files and went through all those to see what was there, what we had done, and then realised, to my eye, there was more to her disappearance than just a disappearance.
Joining the team is Mike Darling, one of the original investigators back in 2003.
It's just take the right folk to come forward to provide that information to the police.
Working alongside Malcolm is Dunedin detective Margot Kennedy.
We missed out on a lot of forensic evidence, but in saying that, there's been a lot more advancements in technology, especially surrounding phones and forensic evidence.
And Tracy Brandsgrove, for whom this investigation has become personal.
So I live in this area and I drive past this house most days. And I always look and I think of Tuitania.
The team will re-look at Tui's case with fresh eyes, ruling out every possible scenario until they find out what really happened to the Dunedin mother of 3.
Margot, Tracy, Mike, thanks for coming along for this case conference for Operation Tui. Obviously, we've got to look back at what we've done with Tui, where we're going, and what we've covered in the past, just to see, make sure we've covered all the bases, make sure what we know, is accurate, and where we're going from here. We had 3 options around what had happened to Tuitania. One, that she'd gone off and committed suicide and never been found, that she had just disappeared out of the country somehow, or foul play had been involved, and somehow Tuitania had been killed. Last positive sighting was the 17th of September by the landlord when he turned up to find out about the rent not having been paid. It appeared there was some friction in the air at that stage, the landlord thought, between the two of them. It wasn't a pleasant exchange, it was fair to say, between Bill and Tui when they were there, and the fact that they were behind the rent, putting the pressure on both of them again. So we know September 17th, she's seen by the landlord. Mm-hmm. We know that she's left the house.
2 pieces of evidence suggest that Tui did indeed walk out. The first was a series of reports from people who claimed to have seen her.
There were those sightings. They had a few sightings back then, or reported possible sightings. Do you remember any of those, or the...?
It was looked into and it appeared there was a doppelganger look-alike person who was very much, which caused a few false leads, if you like.
There was another lady who looked very, very like Tuitania Barclay. In fact, we went and visited her and took a statement from her. And when we showed her the photo of Tui, she couldn't believe it. She thought, that's me.
Even more surprising, the doppelganger was also named Tui.
So it was quite amazing that we had 2 people, the other person thinking the photo we've shown her of Tuitania, thinking it's her as well, or very similar.
The other thing was there were some of those sightings in Timaru, which led to nothing as well.
There were some friends of Bill's when they...
I think there was some association. So.
There was another sighting out South Dunedin too, wasn't there?
There was one at the,
That sort of cake shop?
Yep. We know historically through lots of research, eyewitness accounts are never that accurate or 100% positive. Not gone to any of her friends?
No.
Where would you go if you were going to walk out a relationship? You've got to have somewhere to go and stay.
No one saw her. No one mentioned her coming to stay at their place. From my inquiries re-interviewing people and my new inquiries, it didn't really add up. I have yet to find a person who saw Tania at that time.
Yeah,
Even after reviewing all the supposed sightings again, the team is still convinced the landlord was the last independent person to see Tui alive. They now concentrate on the second piece of evidence, which may support claims she walked out on her family.
We had that note on the envelope, which was found at the time. It's about who wants to be married to a mad bitch.
She left her engagement ring with that too,
Yeah,
didn't she?
she did.
So it was, she was obviously trying to break up the relationship and get out of it. But
Reading on that, I see it as just saying, I'm out of this relationship, you know, and she's come from a situation of being, you know, in state care, prostitution. This is explaining who she is. She sees herself, it's quite a common, I'm no psychologist, but it's quite a common situation where they belittle themselves. So who wants to be married to a mad bitch? She sees herself as maybe ruining the relationship, but it's the breaking up from Bill, which shows us that they're finally in the process of separation in September. She's giving the engagement ring back to him.
Leaving items like that behind, to me, suggests she left in a hurry. The other interesting thing was I photographed all of her clothing. Her clothing was beautiful. She had some lovely pieces of items that she wore, and why would you leave all of your designer clothes if you're going back to prostitution?
Now, this was her favourite leather jacket. Back in 2002, you know, leather jackets were really expensive, and they said she wore this all the time and really loved it, but it didn't go. You know, it was still at the house. It's just weird that you know, you'd leave those sort of things behind.
you'd expect her to take her favourite leather jacket.
It's interesting, though, it was her house. It was all of her furniture. Everything in that house really belonged to her.
And the toys and the bedrooms were so well set up for those kids.
She worked hard to put that house together, and she was like a mini Madonna. Like, her house was like all lace and just done up. It was just tarns. And yeah, and she was very proud of her stuff.
She wanted to buy a car, and she often wrote about that in her diary. And she set goals for saving and planning to buy a car. And I find that incredibly interesting that she left the relationship and she left the car behind. I find that quite unusual. When she'd gone to so much trouble to purchase a car, why would she walk out and leave it?
The car was sold and crushed before Tui was ever reported missing, so it was never forensically examined.
For me, it's huge that she's walked out on those children.
Yeah.
I do not get the impression at all that she would be a mother that would walk out breastfeeding a 5-month-old baby.
Plunkett reported well on her, that she was a mother who was attached to her children. You know, showing loving, caring. Everyone talked about her that we've spoken to since of being a caring, good mother, someone who loved her children and would do anything for them.
Could Tui have been the victim of a random attack?
You know, if there was a house broken into and she was taken, or, you know, that there would be evidence of that, and Bill would be able to tell us. And there'll be physical evidence at the address, which just wasn't there. So it's not, I think that's an extremely low probability.
Or could something from her past have caught up with her?
Yeah, so we've got the possibility of drug debt, you know, owing money, someone's come to collect. We've still got an open mind to this inquiry. We know she came from a violent past. We know the drug dealing. We know that, you know, anything that's involved with drugs is violence.
Although drug debt, home invasion and returning to prostitution looks increasingly unlikely, the team have to methodically eliminate every possibility.
I talked to a lot of girls that were involved in the sex industry, but none of them could recall her going back and working in the sex industry. They hadn't actually seen her for a long time.
Did they remember from the past, though?
Yes, yeah.
Because you went around all the parlours, I remember.
That's right, yeah, I spoke with quite a few. I went down to the library and reviewed the Otago Daily Times classifieds and searched under Tanya's working name to see if she was advertising there or thenabouts, and it came up with nothing.
A former South Island police officer, Tom Fitzgerald, now based in Australia, also has an intimate knowledge of the case.
Tui had, interestingly, been in touch with a couple of people very close to her time of disappearing, and really confiding in those people about her current problems, domestic problems, and the way she felt.
She did ring Natalie up north, and she explained to her that they were having issues and that she wanted out of the relationship and she was going to kick Bill out.
What date was that?
That was late September 2002.
She had quite a good relationship with her eldest boy's father, didn't she?
That's right. And they regularly talked on the phone, so it was Natalie and her ex-partner that encouraged Bill to report her missing because they were concerned every time they rung her, which they did on a regular basis. They kept in contact.
Hello?
Bill was answering her phone. And at that time, DJ was actually up north with his dad. So for Tuitania not to be in contact with her eldest son was very unusual.
Yeah, because you're so close to him.
Very close.
She would not have left Bill with the kids at all, and she would not made contact with us. She knew ways to get in contact with us.
For her to disappear and never contact those people again is highly unusual. But the story in the missing person report was that she'd come back and visited her children weekly for at least another month to 6 weeks.
There's nothing to corroborate those visits. No one else is...
I agree. Chris talks about in his statement arriving round.
Is Chris the good friend?
Yes. He said he was around there every day, if not every second day, and it was sometimes twice a day and at the weekends.
Yeah.
He never once mentioned seeing Tuitania again. There's nothing to corroborate that she was coming back. I think they were the burning questions throughout my time on the inquiry, and that was why would she walk out and leave all of her beautiful clothes, her cell phone, and why would she leave her children and not make any arrangements for them in the future?
Someone knows what's happened to her. It's a secret you can keep, but difficult. Someone knows more than they're telling us. And we want to get that evidence, get those people to tell us what did happen back in 2002.
Cold case investigators are reviewing the file on missing Dunedin mother Tui Barclay.
The evidence we have is someone who's disappeared September, October 2002. Theoretically, we're told has walked out on her 3 children she cared for. She's taken nothing with her that we're aware of. We're told she's taken a bag of some personal belongings with her, but we know she had favourite things, like a favourite leather jacket, favourite jewellery. You know, a woman leaving all their jewellery, makeup behind. She's left those all behind in the family home. Tracy, you obviously got to know Tui pretty well by going through her personal stuff that had been seized back in the original inquiry, like her diaries. We got all those. You've been through those and read those. What can you tell us about those?
Tui regularly wrote about her thoughts and feelings in her diaries, and she kept them for years. She wrote about her personal feelings, about love, about challenges as a mother. She wrote down about DJ and his milestones. She talked about the weather, about mundane things, her housework. She was obviously very house proud, and that was always something she had to focus on. Her diary showed her change, okay, so moving away from drugs, moving away from that scene of where she had come from, meeting Billy and falling in love with him. She talks about how much in love she was, how cared for she felt.
Tui's diaries were taken as evidence, but mysteriously those covering the last 2 years of her life are unaccounted for.
So effectively we're missing some.
Absolutely, I believe there's diaries missing because the last one finishes 3 to 4 weeks out before she has her second child. So there must be more diaries because she's always kept diaries.
Either she stopped taking notes and recording, which seems unlikely, or for some reason those diaries have been got rid of, been destroyed, but we can't find them.
The cold case team now consider Tui's mental health. During her drug-taking teenage years, she'd attempted suicide and self-harm. Had her demons returned?
So we got, went through and got all the medical records of two back at the time, Mike. And we've been through those, and I've re-examined them all, and as we have, there's nothing there to indicate prenatal depression, no appointments from a GP for depression or anything like that. That would be a fair comment?
No, there wasn't any indication in the early part of the inquiry either about mental health issues.
Taking her own life.
Yeah.
But once again, medical notes.
We've been through those, we've been through all her friends.
We would have found her body if she'd taken her own
And
life.
also maybe left a note.
A note for her kids.
Exactly. It comes back to the kids, doesn't it?
Yeah. All our inquiries, everyone we spoke to didn't talk about Tuitania being a depressive. They all said, everyone who was close to her, she's not a person who would commit suicide.
There was no way Tania was suicidal, not from her phone calls. She just wanted to keep Bill out. So we just thought maybe Bill had done something to her.
He was the last person to live with her. He describes her walking away with a bag, walking down to the bus stop, and her disappearing.
Continuing the review, the team re-look at some evidence from Tui and Bill's home.
We went to her house in Waikari Road with the ESR to do forensic testing to see what we could find that may link us to Tui or Tania, and if anything had possibly happened in the house. So during that search in the kitchen area, there was a calendar on the wall. We took that down, and there was a part where behind that the wall had been caved in, so there was cracks and the wall was indented. In the wall we found some black hairs. Were caught in those cracks within the wall where it had been pushed in, and that was the height of that was about 155 centimetres off the ground. Similar to a head height, I suppose. We spoke to Bill about that, and he said that, gave us a couple of explanations. First one, he was drunk and fell against the wall. And then later on he said he'd actually, he'd be drunk and he'd punched the wall in, but couldn't tell us how the hairs got to be in the wall. Mistakes are made back those times, and unfortunately they got destroyed, those hairs. Well, it is frustrating, especially the hairs being destroyed now, when you pick the file up, some 10 to 12 years later, and you're starting to do it, you're looking for any forensic, and to find out a forensic lead has been destroyed was quite disheartening. So you've got to look at other ways of sorting it out.
The team now concentrate on events leading up to Tui's disappearance and the 5 months before she was reported missing.
Talk through the finances. I have to refresh my memory, but her income, was that still going into the Bill's common account?
Originally it was going into the common account. And as we see with the diaries and written on that, she kept quite good records of where the money was, $240 for rent, power this, HP this. She sort of knew where the money was going out to.
So Bill should have been getting pretty frustrated had she walked out and she was taking the household money with her, because he wouldn't have any income.
Around the time she disappeared, he went into the WINS office at the time and changed they were on a dual benefit, changed that into a solo parents benefit. He opened a bank account in his own name so the money could be paid into there. He got the lease changed into his name only for the property. The phone, as we said, he took up ownership.
Did Bill use her phone, or did
He did.
phone just stop?
No, he wiped her phone and he used it as his phone.
Do we remember what happened to the numbers and all the contacts and stuff on that phone?
As far as I'm aware, they were wiped and he used it as his phone.
Yeah.
And we were unable to recover any of that data because we were already over 5 months down track from when she last used it.
Well, her phone has gone, obviously. Telecom, it would have been great to have text messaging, call data, all that stuff off the phone would have been of value to us. We had our old bank records to show that they had been got, that the bank hadn't been used, there'd been one withdrawal, in that time of her disappearance of $120 through an ATM, but unfortunately they didn't have any CCTV on that ATM. So we don't know who withdrew that, but that was the last time it was ever used.
Considering all the factors, especially the damaged wall at Tui's head height, no further use of her ATM card, and no contact whatsoever with her 3 children, police believe there is only one scenario.
There's no other conclusion you can come to other than the fact that Tui is dead.
My feeling is it's foul play. I see no evidence to indicate a suicide or taking her off the country. So I think that we're on the right direction.
Absolutely.
This is a mum who's been killed by someone.
Whether what happened to her was accidental or intentional, that's a very open question.
This case, like all homicides, is extremely important to me in that she has 3 children. She has friends who are very concerned about her. From a police perspective, we need to find an answer for those children as to what happened to their mother. To me, that doesn't matter whether it was yesterday, 15 years on, or 20 years on. That doesn't get any better for those children, it gets worse.
So what happened to the Dunedin mother of 3 in 2002? Police are determined to find that one piece of information that will solve the mystery of Tuitania's death. Back in 2002, police treated the disappearance of Tuitania Barclay as a missing person. But while reviewing this cold case, Malcolm Ingalls and his team have come to the conclusion that the mother of 3 was killed and her body hidden.
Tui's body has never been located, which again, for the family involved, the children involved, is really significant in their coping and dealing with the fact that their mother has disappeared. And the answers of where she is crucial to them to move on.
Whether it's, a premeditated or it's a spur of the moment thing, a fit of rage, we don't know that.
Tom Fitzgerald speculates on the mind of a killer and their actions.
Well, there's 2 possible scenarios with the killing of a person. It's planned or unplanned. If it's planned, the killer has time to do all that pre-planning. How am I going to do it? What am I going to do with the body? And that entails preparation and the likes of getting something to put the body in, and whether it's a tarpaulin, whether it's bags. Where am I going to bury the body? That could involve pre-planning of digging a grave, having that all set, ready to go. If it's unplanned, which of course a large majority of our homicides are unplanned. They're domestic related or they're anger related or drug and fueled rage, but they are unplanned. What that involves then for the killer is the person's dead, now what do I do? That scenario then moves on to, well, I have to get rid of the body. Depending on the time frame available to the killer, that then dictates how far they can take that. Can I store the body for a day? Can I store it for 2 days? Is someone going to come and see me? Would someone look around my house? Which is all dependent on that person's lifestyle, about where they believe that they have that time and space to think. Or do they react immediately and try and dump the body? We know through history of homicides in New Zealand, there's not many where bodies are not located.
Yeah, the body's the greatest exhibit you can have, isn't it, on any homicide inquiry?
All the evidence is there, isn't it? We just don't have that evidence. There's normally some sort of forensics or someone leaves something with the body, and we generally always have that. You know how long we spend at a scene where the body is. It's days examining. And without that, it just puts us always one step behind.
Since Tui vanished almost 16 years ago, there have been numerous searches for her remains.
We had some information that a dog had been paying particular attention to a part of the Waikari Road house, the lawn, so we went back there with VSR and spent a few days digging up that bit of the garden where the dog had shown interest, but unfortunately we located nothing. We found photos of Tuitania at Ross Creek, which is a reservoir area, city reservoir in Dunedin. Just on an off chance, the dive squad were in Dunedin, so we had that lake searched. But to this stage, we've found nothing.
The house is also situated around a lot of native bush and farmland, and across the road there's a big dog park, and there's a substation with a lot of vacant ground as well. So It's on the outskirts of the city and it's in close locality to a number of bush areas.
Yeah.
Hiding a body is possible when you have the time and the circumstances. And the ability to take that time, if you're not under pressure and you have that ability, then it's absolutely possible to have that body concealed for this period of time.
So if she's been buried somewhere, we would think it wouldn't be too far away because there's plenty of areas close to that house where a body could be easily buried. We've got the city's forests nearby, Ross Creek and the whole reserve around there, which is all bush area, quite secluded. It wouldn't be a difficult place to,
You're within a kilometre, aren't you, of a huge range of terrain that would be suitable.
So, we've got the maps here. We have a quick look at those. Of Wakariri Road, and you think of, here's a good blown-up one, which is a bit closer in. Rudd Road, which ran up into the bush area, which is, just, 150 metres past their house. Run up into farmland, but if you go further along, we're getting into a lot of bush area, then even slightly further along, we're talking, not even a kilometre, we're getting down to here. The house is #1 priority. Doing around the grounds there, because we know at the front there's that quite high hedge, because when we were digging there back a few years ago, that looking at that spot, no one could see us in there. No one even knew we were in there doing that.
Could anything have been missed in previous searches of Tui's property? Will more up-to-date equipment be the key to finding her body?
Well, we're going to look at Waikari Road again. We haven't fully searched the whole property with ground-penetrating radar. We know if someone's been killed in their house or somewhere, the body's not going to move far. People don't like carting bodies miles in the back of a car or going miles up tracks to try and get rid of it. So there's still that opportunity that a body might be buried there. So we'll go and have a look.
This sophisticated ground-penetrating radar emits a signal from any object buried up to 15 metres deep.
Then there's something been buried in the section, chances of finding it?
If it's there, we'll find it.
Her body's got to be somewhere. It's not going to be taken a long distance or a big distance from where she's been killed.
In this case, Tui hasn't got a family knocking our door down and screaming about what has happened, quite rightly, as a family would. Which to me makes it even more important that we take that role.
I think we're close. We're very close. We're 1 or 2 pieces away to complete the puzzle.
16 years on, will the cold case team finally be able to bring closure to family and friends of Tuitania Barclay? Police are using the most up-to-date ground-penetrating radar equipment to search for the remains of Tuitania Barclay, the 28-year-old mother of 3 who disappeared in late 2002.
It's all pretty clear through here.
Clear?
Yep.
After a thorough scan of the property, no anomalies are found. If Tui was killed at the house or close by, police believe her body won't be far away, irrespective of how well it's been hidden.
Either the person has had time, and time and circumstances where they have had time to think about how they are going to get rid of this body, and do it in a way where it is going to be concealed for a long period of time.
Where to from here? We continue. We hope, we know out there are some people who know more than they're telling us. Perhaps her ex-partner knows more than he's telling us.
In 2010, Bill Brown relocated to Britain with the 2 boys he and Tui had together.
Yeah, clearly it was very important for the investigation to move forward that we spoke to Bill Brown. I first spoke to him in 2016 by phone, and we had a number of phone conversations throughout the end of 2016, resulting in him and I meeting in the UK for a formal interview in February 2017.
We've obviously been to the UK and spoke with Bill. Inspector Tom Fitzgerald and myself went over there. Some interesting questions out of that. It was an unusual interview. It was a man being asked about whether or not he may have killed Tuitania.
In any interview with a person who is critical to an investigation, there's a number of parts to that. And that is not only what the person says, but what they don't say. It's reading between the lines about what isn't being said.
When we put it to him about the inconsistencies, about some of the untruths, about the phone, him using the phone, about the car, about changing the benefit, we really got no answers for those. He couldn't tell us why those things had happened.
At the conclusion of that interview, I think we both agreed that there were still a number of issues that we needed to talk about in relation to the inconsistencies, and that he would go away and think about those things. He wanted to discuss things with his family, and that we would talk again in the future.
Tom and Malcolm also discover through UK authorities that Tui and Bill's 2 children are starting to ask questions about the fate of their mother.
They're getting older now, obviously, and into 17 and being the oldest.
There will be questions asked by those around them. There's going to be questions asked by family members. There's going to be questions asked by children. Often, loyalties change. The memory of what's happened grows and the loyalties change as to why people didn't or may have not come forward at the time, or may have not told us the full truth at the time of what they knew of the circumstances. It's critical for us that those people look at what's happened and think on about the loyalties and the importance of knowing what's happened to Tui, to her children, knowing what's happened to their mother. Those loyalties feign into insignificance when you look at what those children are going through without the answers, without their mother's body, without the answers about what happened.
We're hoping his friends who knew Tuitania well and came around and saw him after she disappeared will tell us more about what they know and what they saw. Our best evidence, without anything forensic, are those people who were close at the time, who are intimate friends of her and Bill and her other associates.
We will keep pushing until we have completely exhausted all avenues of this inquiry, and I'm confident that we will find out what has happened to Tui.
Yeah, we're doing this for the kids as much as anything. The kids need to know what's the final conclusion and put their mother to rest in a proper way.
I do think it's solvable. I think there is someone out there that knows something, and that could just be the final piece to our puzzle.
It's not about protecting someone now. It's about getting something that we can take to those children. We've got kids 20, 17, 15. We're all parents. We want to know what happened to our parents. Someone out there who's a parent, think about those children. Think about them wanting to know what's happened to their mum.
There comes time in everybody's life, killer or the normal person walking the street, where for certain reasons they are vulnerable. And that cognitive load that they've been holding for all those years, there will be times where they definitely want to and will be able to tell the truth.
It's tragic she's never been found. It's tragic for those boys. And I believe we owe it to Tuitania to find her, to bring her back to her boys.
Her kids and DJ, and they need closure. Everybody needs closure. It's been a long time.
I'm a father with 3 children. I want to bring closure for them. I'd love to let them know what's happened to their mother. I want them to know where she is, bring her home, give them some closure. We've got our oldest boy who believes that his mother just walked out on him. How can any boy live with that, thinking their mother's walked out on them, when we know she didn't?